everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. Today is voting day in Quebec, and check out the scene in different ridings as the provincial party leaders went out to cast their votes. Now, interestingly, the CAQ leader François Legault cast his vote last week. His party is favored to win the most seats tonight. So for many, the most interesting race will not be the one for government, but the race to see who becomes official opposition and to see where the various parties land after Quebec voters make their will known. With that, let's bring in our Quebec journalist panel. Yasmine Abdelfadel is a columnist with Le Journal de Montréal as well as Le Journal de Quebec. She's also a political commentator with Cube Radio. Joël-Denis Bellavance is the parliamentary reporter for La Presse. Hello to both of you.
Hi.
Hello.
Yasmine, I'm going to ask you to start us off because it seems the drama tonight is less about who will form the next government, but which party will lead the opposition, who the other players might be in that opposition. What exactly will you be watching out for?
Obviously, this was a weird campaign because Coalition Avenir Québec was leading the way from the get-go, and no other party was able to distinguish itself among the opposition. So we'll be watching who's going to be able to gain as much seats as possible. But anything less than 85 seats for the Coalition Avenir Québec might be disappointing for them because the expectations are really high.
Yeah, high expectations, as you say, but really interesting to see this past couple of days, Joël-Denis, because we saw the other party leaders crisscrossing Quebec, trying to get whatever undecided vote was out there or perhaps swaying voters to their side. Would you agree with the analysis that we heard from Yasmine, given that pundits also point out that this was not a very strong campaign for Legault?
Absolutely. I think this was the worst campaign that M. Legault could have imagined to lead. I think he was assuming that this would be a cakewalk to victory, but it wasn't. And he put himself in trouble by making some controversial comments on immigration, for example, and also the way he handled the pandemic during the last 2 years. So it was a very difficult campaign. And during the two debates, he looked like he didn't want to be there. He wanted to be elsewhere than facing off with the other leaders. So a lot of people assume that he will win still a big majority. Why? Because the opposition parties are so fragmented that the vote will be fragmented that will allow Mr. Legault to win, even though the popular vote may not be as strong as it was expected before this campaign started.
Mm-hmm. And yet, despite this campaign for Legault, as you say, he's expected to take another majority. And here we have the Quebec Liberals and the PQ, Joël-Denis, really fighting for relevance. Does that say anything about internal party politics, or is that actually a shift in priorities for the Quebec electorate?
It's a shift of priorities. Young people do not, have anything to do with the sovereignty debate or the federalist debate. So those two parties who were, occupying most of the political spectrum in the last 50 years have been pushed aside because of the coalition Avenir Québec way of presenting itself to Quebecers. It is a party that is aiming on autonomy of Quebec, but not sovereignty. So I think it pleases the majority of Quebecers who have spent, many years debating whether they wanted to remain in Canada or opt out. And this debate is over, and it changes dramatically the political configuration of the National Assembly. And we'll see it again tonight. If the Parti québécois can win a seat, it will be lucky, I think. And the Liberal Party, if it remains the official party in the National Assembly, I think it will be able to call it a success.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yasmine, what does it say to you about the judgment Quebecers are delivering, at least ahead of the vote results themselves, on the PQ and the Liberals? Because it does seem, as we were hearing from Joël-Denis, they are fighting for relevance here.
Yeah, the PQ and the Liberals were not able to renew themselves other than with the questions of sovereignty versus federalism. Now they have to present Quebecers with a different proposition: economic identity, French language. How can they manage economy and identity, Quebec identity, and fight for both? We don't know what the Liberals are running for now. They used to be running for or running against sovereigntism which is not the case, which is not the ballot question here. And they will need few years to just find their soul and fight for it, because Quebecers actually, they don't know, and they can't understand what are the Liberals proposing to them. For the PQ, we say that they have the best campaign so far, but still, if they had 7 seats. If they have anything less than 3 seats, it's going to be very disappointing. But anything will be less than what they had before, and that is not a win for the PQ.
Joël-Denis, we mentioned that the debates of the past are no longer resonating with the next generation, but I do wonder about the Anglophone vote writ large, though, in Quebec. Where will they be parking their vote this time? Will that still be with the Liberals, or is the Anglophone vote looking for a new home as well?
That's a very interesting question, because in the past, this electorate, part of the electorate, was sort of captive of the Liberal Party of Quebec because they were fighting separation. It's no longer the dominant debate, so Anglophones now have other options, and some of them are maybe tempted to vote for the Parti conservateur, the Conservative Party led by Éric Duhem, who opposed Bill 96 in this campaign and saying that this was discriminatory against Anglophones. So we'll have to see. If that's the case, that means that the Liberal Party could lose some seats in the Montreal Island, which is considered to be a bastion for Liberal for the last century almost. So it's going to probably realign politics again in Quebec, thanks to the arrival of the Conservative Party of Quebec. The Anglophones have another option other than the Liberal Party.
Yasmine, what do you think? Do you think the Anglophone vote will shift in this election, or do you think that they are essentially also, like the Liberal Party, trying to figure out where to go next?
The Conservative Party hasn't proven himself to be as efficient and as present for the Montreal region where the Anglophones are. But I think that the Anglophones will still be voting for the Liberals because they do not have any other options. But what is interesting is that François Legault has been using a divide and conquer strategy throughout this campaign. Francophones versus Anglophones, immigrants versus French Canadians, Montrealers versus Quebec City. And will this strategy pay off in 4 years from now, in 2026, in another campaign? Is the strategy will help the Coalition Avenir Québec to be present in the Greater Montreal region? I have doubts about that.
Joël-Denis, I want to get back to the issues here, though, too, because in talking about this campaign and the issues people are trying to decide, one issue that you did raise earlier that has proven controversial for the CAQ leader has to do with immigration to Quebec. And for people outside the province who may not have been following this very closely, Joël-Denis, I'm wondering if you could talk to us about the comments that were made by François Legault that other parties in the province have picked up on.
Well, there were a few, so I'll pick the one that was mostly controversial, the one that he made an association with violence and immigration, that because some immigrants who come to Quebec may not share the Quebec values and they may resort to violence. And this was denounced unanimously by all the other parties, and Mr. Legault had to apologize for this. But it brought to the surface some kind of a level that we haven't seen in the past about the place of immigrants in Quebec. And it's deplorable in my sense, because during the pandemic, who took care of the elderly in the CHSLD? They were mostly people from immigration. So we have a lot of people to thank for this. And Mr. Legault just brought the level of debate to a level that we haven't seen in the past in Quebec about immigration. And his point was that we need to protect French, and for that matter, we need to reduce immigration. But business people have a total different option on this one. They feel that we need to increase immigration to be able to hire people, because there's a lack of workers in Quebec, and we need also to maintain the political weight of Quebec across the country by increasing immigration. Otherwise, we're going to be Quebec will be reduced in terms of seats in the House of Commons eventually. So a lot of consequences: political, economic, and also social consequences as a result of the comments made by François Legault.
And Yasmine, again, comments made by Legault, but is it possible to actually say definitively where he stands on the issue of immigration to Quebec? Has he said anything very direct, or is it safe to make any type of conclusion?
Well, he said that he wants to welcome 50,000 new immigrants each year, whereas the PQ, the Parti Québécois, wants to lower that number to 35,000 immigrants each year. The difference here is that the Parti Québécois is not talking bad about immigrants and immigration. They have a different approach about immigration. And François Legault is on really thin ice here because a lot of people are rejecting the nationalism he's putting forward. They don't recognize themselves in that kind of nationalism. And will he be able to just turn everything around during the mandate, during the 4 years? A lot of people were hurt. A lot of people are hurt. I don't think people are going to easily forget about these comments. And he might not need immigration in 2022, but he might need it in 2026.
Well, he does raise the possibility of a referendum on the issue of immigration. Is he serious about that, Joël-Denis?
Well, I think that's the only card that he's got to play with Ottawa, because Ottawa has refused to give anything to Quebec in terms of immigration. And his comments, I think, will not convince people in Ottawa to give him more powers because of the comments he made about immigration. But if he does call a referendum, I think his coalition Avenir Québec might explode, because there are some federalists, strong federalists, and strong ministers. I will name a few of them. Éric Girard, the Minister of Finance; Pierre Fitzgibbon, the Minister of the Economy; Sonia Lebel, who is responsible for intergovernmental affairs. They are strong federalists. And if he goes on the path to holding a referendum, I wish him good luck maintaining his coalition Avenir Québec intact.
Quickly running out of time, but I do have to ask both of you. And Yasmine, I'll begin with you. In terms of the races to watch for in tonight's vote, where will you be keeping a close eye on? And if not particular ridings, which individuals will you be watching very closely?
3 out of 5 leaders are running for their seats, and they have nothing. They'll have to run really fast tonight if they want to keep their seats or win their seats within the National Assembly. Otherwise, there are some regional battlegrounds in Sherbrooke, in Abitibi, in Quebec City, where the PCQ, the Parti conservateur, be able to win some seats. These are the battlegrounds I'll be watching for tonight.
Joël-Denis, how about you?
Well, I'll be watching the same thing as Yasmine about the future of those leaders. Quebec Liberal leader Dominique Anglade, Éric Duhem, the Conservative Party leader, and Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the Parti Québécois leader. But also, I'll be watching whether the Parti Québécois will remain relevant to the Quebec debates. If they win less than 3 seats, I think that's the end of that party in the short term.
Okay, well, a lot to watch out for tonight. Thank you for setting us all up for that. Yasmine Abdelfadel and Joël-Denis Bellavance, thank you for that. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good day.
You too.